Hi guys, I'm the one in 1.3, welcome to the family. For those of you who are new to this channel is dedicated to home education and education in general and just life inside my family home. So I haven't recorded a video for a while, so I'd like to apologise about that, but we are coming to the end of our homeschool journey with my son, and my daughter's got one more year at home. But anyway, in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how we've taught science at home. Because lately I've had a few people asking me, like, how do you teach science at home? What have you done? So in this video, I'm just going to be telling you a bit of the things that I did with my children as I home educated them. And then on my next video, I'm going to be showing you a bit of the curriculum that I've used with my children. So yeah, stay tuned. Okay, so if you... Okay, so if you hear any noise, don't be alarmed. It's just my dog is outside, the birds are singing, and I've also got my daughter over there doing some of her homeschooling. So yes, if you hear any noise, don't be alarmed about that. And also ignore the mess behind there. My daughter's making a dress for the European Student Convention that we're going to next week. Okay, so where do I start? Science. So basically, when I was trying to think about this video, when I was trying to answer the questions, I kind of felt to myself like I wish I had done more science with my children. I wish I had discovered more with them, given them more opportunities to, perform their science, did more experiments with them and things like that. But as I was writing a few notes down for this video, I realised that actually I've done more science with the children than I actually thought. And maybe after watching this video, you'd recognise that you're covering science in your household more than you thought as well, but maybe you'll get some tips and tricks or things you can use with your children at home and different questionings and different places you can take them to build up their scientific knowledge as well. So I'm actually quite happy with the amount of science that we've done now. To start this video off, I'd like to say that science simply means knowledge. It's not really something that can be boxed in a curriculum, as everything around us is based on science. We are covering questions and answers all the time. We are discovering things and figuring things out all the time, and that's basically what science involves. Science is about the world all around us and the different things that we see. Yeah, so science links isolated facts into different understandings, and it's a process of discovery, and we have done quite a lot of discovering over our time homeschooling. We ask ourselves questions all the time, and our children ask us questions all the time too. For example, when baking a cake, your children might ask you, how do cakes rise, or why do cakes rise? Or maybe when you're walking around, they might say things like, how did the airplane get up in the sky? I don't know what sort of questions your children asked you, but it's literally about questions and answers. And I think if you can kind of incorporate that around every aspect of your life, where you're getting your children to ask questions about everything and anything, you are dealing with science, basically. Okay, so let me start off by talking to you about some of the experiments we did within our homeschool. Corn flour is a really good experiment that you can use with your children. Just get them to play with the corn flour. You get corn flour with water, you can just add it together and maybe put some food colouring in there. That's literally all you need for a corn flour experiment. Get them to play with it and see what happens when they're playing with the corn flour. The fact that it can be a solid and a liquid at the same time. What's happening?
It's thin!
Okay, so lift it.
So much thin!
Lift it up. Is it wet or dry?
It's wet!
Is it both?
Yes!
Rico, go and have a go. Is it wet or dry?
It's dry! Because when you pick it up, it becomes, it's hard, and then when you... No, you mean wet? No, it's hard when you pick it up, and then when it's up here...
Go back, do some more.
No, that's stinking.
Jogger keeps on putting it on my
Don't put it on him though. Just pick it up.
here.
Have a go.
Mom, she keeps putting it on my head. Look at you though! You're the one who put it on mine first.
How's it feel? How's it feel, Reeks?
Stinking!
How do you like it? Huh?
How do you like it?
Now, when your children are playing with the corn flour, allow them to ask you questions. Just say to them, okay, then just see what questions come up when they're talking about it, or see what sort of things they're saying when they're feeling the corn flour on their hands, the mixture on their hands. And then once they have done that, you can kind of move into some of the scientific terminology that you can use with your children. So for example, my children learned that corn flour is a non-Newtonian fluid. So it's basically a non-normal fluid that can be a solid and a liquid at the same time. So for example, when you hit the corn flour, it becomes a solid temporarily. and when the pressure is removed, it becomes a liquid. Okay, so have a go at that with your children. Another scientific experiment that we did was based on oil and water, making lava lamps. That was quite good in showing them that even though you've got the oil, which is a liquid, and the water that is a liquid, together they don't quite mix. So that's quite cool. So you just need oil, you need water, you need baking soda, makes it bubble up a little bit, and you also need food colouring. And that's quite a good experiment that you can use with your children too. Sorry, so basically my son, if you watch this video over here, he talked about the fact that when he was younger, he made a cell out of jelly and sweets and different things like that. I'll talk to you about that in my other video when I explain a bit more about the curriculum that we used. But in that video, he talked about the fact that he remembers so much about the cell because of that activity that he did then. I'm not going to add another.
We made a cell.
It's a rough idea.
A rough idea as a cell. So we had to read about the cells first, and so we can understand it. We looked from the book, and we have all these yummy sweets that we have been used to make this. We used to make this. And
Tell me about the cells. What's inside a cell?
inside the cell, there's a lysosome.
That's like lysosome.
Lysosome.
Technically like a police, but it just helps
And
the bacteria. It helps the bacteria to grow away.
And
Okay, so other things we did, we went to science fairs. When there were homeschool groups running any science fairs, we went there. My children used to attend a science class with a qualified science teacher on a Wednesday in my local community. That's where parents would just kind of make groups that other children could come to.
So you get so otherwise. It's a good experience. It's a good responsibility.
Were you writing, Leila? Were you writing? I'm not sure there's many groups running now since post-COVID, but pre-COVID there was quite a lot of homeschool groups that you could find for your children. This went on for in the Key Stage 2 range, or from the age of like 6 to 11. Yes, when your child hits about 10 or 11, maybe even earlier, but this is when you kind of have to really start thinking about what scientific curriculum you will use to kind of get those facts in a little bit more, and to, you know, make sure that they're learning things correctly and that you have the actual concepts. Like I spoke to you about earlier in the video where I spoke about corn flour, and there was a phrase I used called the Newtonian fluid concept. So that's like a scientific terminology for the same thing. But when you bring in those concepts, it allows them to have that higher level, critical thinking level with their work. Okay, so let's kind of move in a bit more into the nitty-gritty of science, a science that you might find in workbooks, a science that you might find if you follow the national curriculum, because it's broken down into different categories, things like plants and animals, you've got things like electricity, forces, astrology, seasons, materials, you know, things like that. There's all different categories of science that your child will kind of build upon more as they get older. So we'll kind of break this down a little bit more. For the plants and animals topic, for example, we've had a lot of immersion in plants and animals. I remember a couple of years ago, quite a lot more, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we looked after my friend's pets because she went over to Ghana. So she gave us... So she gave us her duck, her pet rabbit, and her bunny, and some chickens, I think it was. And my children got to look after the animals, see what it meant to look after the animals, and clean up their pens and give them their hay and things like that. Obviously, it's moved on now because now we have our own pets. We have 2 rabbits and we have a dog within the house too. We also like to visit zoos. My children had loads of zoo trips, went to Chessington quite often, went to London Zoo quite often. In terms of plants, used to go to Kew Gardens. There was a homeschool group there that we went to where we met up with other homeschoolers at a discounted rate, and they'd get to explore Kew Gardens and the different plants that they'd see and the different activities that was on for them as well. In my garden, we had a raised bed. So there was a raised bed at the back of my garden where we planted strawberries and, you know, cucumber and sweet corn and all these different things. I learned about that. We had our own plants that we'd plant at home that we'd keep around the house. We made cress seed activities, which was a very easy experiment that you can do. Even this classroom that you see over here, we built that together as a family. My dad's obviously a carpenter and he did most of the work, but we helped him to kind of build the foundation. So they learned a lot of Bible, they learned a bit of Bible concepts there about the foundation having to be really strong and rock solid, learn about building your house on a rock, things like that. So we had to kind of dig really low into the ground. The children got to find out out about clay because they discovered clay in the earth, natural clay under the earth. We looked at like worms and, you know, and anything that they found under the ground. We then go to the local library and get books about that to kind of find out more about these things they were interested in. So all of this stuff you do naturally in your own homes, and like you just have to recognize that when these things are occurring, this is science, and it's really important to kind of home in on that as a parent, so that you're teaching your children all those life skills, scientific skills, and that when they move on to scientific concepts at the higher level, they would have a lot of that to draw upon. It's a bit like a classical method where you look at the foundational point, where you set a foundation, they learn certain facts, and then as they progress further, there's a logical phase where they start to ask questions about it. As they go further into the rhetoric phase or the abstract phase, they are able to dive in a bit deeper, basically. If you go to my website at www.1.3family.com, I have my own curriculum on there, and I have all of these sort of science activities listed as a curriculum, and it's absolutely free. So head over there if you would like to have information already ready-made and prepared for you. So in the national curriculum, children in year 3 would learn about seasons and about how physical features change around them. So like in the spring, we talk about the fact that there's blossoms on the tree, forming on the trees. During autumn, we talk about the fact that the leaves had fallen off the trees. So again, you can do that with your children. If there's like a tree that they constantly walk past or constantly see, just look at the changes and observe the changes in nature and get them to ask lots of questions about that. Observing garden animals is really good. We've had so much discoveries in our garden. We've had foxes, we've had squirrels, we've had hedgehogs in our garden, birds, seagulls have come round, so much different animals. So when we see animals that they couldn't identify, I'd get like an identification chart, and they could look at like what animals they've discovered in their gardens and work out why those animals come to the garden and why they don't. They learn about insects at school, and with insects, we always have insects in your house. There's always a spider that you might find. You could go under logs in your garden and to see what's living under there, and if you take them away, just put them back in their, you know, correct habitat. Habitat is another thing that comes up in the curriculum too. With spiders, we would just see how long they stay on our window frame outside. Look at what other animals like form around the outside of your window, things like caterpillars, cocoons, butterflies. You find out about moths that come out in the daytime as well, but you also see them at night, flickering around the light. They might ask questions like, why does the moths always flick around, why do the moths always go towards the light? Or why do flies always fly around in a circle? Insects are quite interesting because obviously it depends how, what sort of things your children have been exposed to. Maggots, which is not a nice one to say, but obviously if you put your bins out and they haven't been changed enough, maggots will form in your bin. So it teaches your children to make sure they recycle, make sure that they don't put their food waste in the wrong bin. Oh yeah, some other insects are daddy long legs that come out in the when it's getting a bit colder. I don't like daddy long legs, but obviously I don't even know if that's the right term for them. But there's a lot of those you can discuss and talk about that as well, why they come out at a certain time of year, why there's some years that there's more than others. Pollination's another good one. My children learned about pollination through watching a movie called The Bee Movie, I think it is. Another good movie based on insects is Ants. You can learn a lot from movies, and I never shy away from movies where they're learning something from it. So that's another thing that we did in our homeschool. Life cycles comes up a lot in science. Life cycles is another big one. We come from a very large family, so they get to learn about the life cycles of family members. There's always babies being formed, which gives a lot more opportunity to ask questions about that. And then obviously people die. So obviously people die, animals die. You get the chance to speak about life and death with your children too. And at this point as well, it's about building up that vocabulary. So I try to build up the vocabulary with my children, looking at words like larva, pupae, things like this that they need to kind of have. So once they know that vocabulary, when they see it again in books, they understand what we're referring to, what we're talking about. Yeah, so basically there's other scientific concepts that you would need to maybe use books for more to kind of build up on the knowledge and the vocabulary a little bit more of your children. Like I said, going to the library, getting lots of books out of the library can really help, but you can also get other curriculum that can kind of help with it a little more too. But if you do decide to go for a box curriculum or some kind of curriculum, don't forget to continue doing these things where you're seeing things in your natural environment, asking lots of questions and making learning fun, and think about many experiments you can do with your children at home to also increase that knowledge as much as you possibly can. But like I said, as they get older, it does get a bit more theory based. Things like electricity, you can still discover electricity in a practical way, like through charging your phone, or the fact that they all have different devices and laptops and televisions. You can talk to your children about the fact that we want to save money with electricity. What can we do? Like make sure you turn off the lights at a certain time of the day, things like that. But then, like I said, there's a level of vocabulary that you need to produce. I'm going to stop there. I know sometimes my videos do come across a little bit like I'm rambling a little bit, but I have so much to say and so much logged in my head. I just want to have a conversation with you really and see how you feel about the curriculum that we've used, and maybe it gives you encouragement of doing these things at home with your children. So that's me just talking freely about what I did within my homeschool. I hope you like the videos that I sent over here as well. It shows you my children in action doing these things, show you that it's real life of what we have done. And my oldest boy, he loves science a lot, and he's literally studying medical science now at university. So it just shows that, you know, you can do a lot within your homeschool as well, and your children can do just as much as everybody else when they come of age and they start making their own paths into different areas of university and things like, and further education basically. I hope you liked my video. Please like and subscribe or hit the bell notification down below if you would like to have updates on my new videos. And also, if you'd like to see that new video that I'm making about curriculum that I've used, then it's good if you subscribe so that you'd know when the video is posted. Sorry I speak so fast as well, but yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.